If you're a longtime Star Wars fan, then you probably already know that the Tales of the Jedi goes as far back as the Phantom Menace, even before. In fact, it stretches so far backwards that it cuts across the reign of the Empire before the New Hope. That being said, most new fans would be wondering what timeline each episode of Tales of the Jedi takes place. Keep watching this video to find out what you need to know. Tales of the Jedi, an animated Star Wars adventure, contains a sprawling history that spans two major eras of the Star Wars universe. Count Dooku and Ahsoka Tano are the subjects of 6 short stories in the anthology Tales of the Jedi. Featuring 2 characters integral to so much of the Star Wars canon, necessitates some time jumping as the 6 episodes of Tales of the Jedi unfold. Some episodes are much clearer than others about where they fall in the timeline, while others are far more ambiguous. Still, there are numerous clues within each episode that can be used to determine a more precise time frame for their occurrence. Except for the first episode, which takes place in her youth. The Ahsoka episodes all take place during or shortly after George Lucas's Star Wars prequel trilogy. Dooku's episodes take place between the events of Lucas's first prequel film, The Phantom Menace, and the aftermath of the Battle of Naboo. That being said, here are the specific points in Star Wars canon when each episode of Tales of the Jedi occurs. Episode 1. Life and Death. The first episode of Tales of the Jedi focuses on Ahsoka Tano's childhood. Ashoka's birth on Sheely is covered in this episode, as is the first time she shows signs of being sensitive to the Force. If Ahsoka was 14 when she first appeared in Star Wars canon in Star Wars The Clone Wars, then she was born in the year 36 BBY. The first episode of Tales of the Jedi begins at this moment in time. The remaining events of the episode take place not long after this, with Ahsoka shown in Tales of the Jedi to be a tad older, at roughly 35 or 34 BBY. Episode 2. Justice. Episode 2 of Tales of the Jedi is one of the more enigmatic episodes because it introduces Count Dooku for the first time. In this episode, Qui-Gon Jinn, Dooku's trainee, and Dooku himself journey to a faraway planet in an effort to resolve a hostage crisis. Since Dooku is still a member of the Jedi Order and Qui-Gon's master, we may safely assume that this episode takes place before the events of The Phantom Menace, which takes place in 32 BBY. Given that Qui-Gon is 48 in The Phantom Menace, this episode of Tales of the Jedi must take place between 60 and 50 BBY, when Qui-Gon is shown as being much younger. Episode 3. Choices. The third episode of Tales of the Jedi also has a shaky chronological foundation. Mace Windu, the focus of numerous fan theories, appears in this episode, which can be used to pinpoint when it takes place. Master Catri's death is probed by Windu and Dooku, and towards the episode's end, Windu is offered Catri's position on the Jedi Council. According to canon, Windu joined the Council at the astonishingly early age of 28. Episode 3 of Tales of the Jedi is set in 44 BBY, which makes sense given that Windu was born in 72 BBY. Episode 4. The Sith Lord. Episode 4 of Tales of the Jedi is one of the most straightforward episodes to slot into the canon of Star Wars media, beginning with a nod to their brief interaction in The Phantom Menace. Dooku and his Padawan Qui-Gon recount their experiences with the Sith Lord on Tatooine. Based on this information, we know that the first scene of the episode takes place in 32 BBY, the same year The Phantom Menace is set. After Qui-Gon is killed by Maul, the story advances in time, but only to a point in time after that event. That would still put these events in 32 BBY, illustrating Dooku's complete turn to the dark side. Episode 5. Practice makes perfect. This Tales of the Jedi episode features the most time travel of any in the series. Right off the bat, we see Ahsoka starting her Jedi training at the temple on Coruscant. Ahsoka's clothing in this monument is a hybrid of her Clone Wars Season 1 outfit and her Season 2 to 5 outfit, similar to the outfit she wore during Anakin's training sessions with his Padawan. This dates the commencement of the show to sometime during the Clone Wars, between 22 BBY and 20 BBY. It's safe to believe it's closer to 22 BBY, the start of the Clone Wars, because Anakin has shorter hair, Obi-Wan looks more like Ewan McGregor in Attack of the Clones, and the clone troopers are wearing Phase 1 armor. We then flash forward a few years to when Ahsoka is back in training, with Anakin's hair now longer and the clones now sporting Phase 2 armor. This suggests that this section of the show occurs sometime between 20 BBY and 19 BBY, during the tail end of the Clone Wars. However, the episode's climax is set unequivocally in 19 BBY, not long after Ahsoka escapes Order 66 66, and the Siege of Mandalore, the climactic scene of the Season 7 finale of The Clone Wars, in which Rex and Ahsoka escape the clones, is inverted in this episode. Episode 6, Resolve. Ahsoka's confrontation with an Inquisitor and her subsequent role as fulcrum for Bail Organa are just two of the events from her period in hiding following Order 66 that are examined in the series finale of Tales of the Jedi. This episode adapts various different elements from the Ahsoka novel to focus on the same occurrences. Based on this, we can deduce that Tales of the Jedi Episode 6 occurs in 18 BBY, a full year after the Clone Wars ended and the Jedi Order was dissolved. Tales of the Jedi can do for Dooku what Clone Wars did for Anakin. The Clone Wars was a huge success for Anakin Skywalker, and now Tales of the Jedi can do the same for Count Dooku, another iconic villain. Star Wars, The Clone Wars, had a profound effect on Anakin Skywalker, and Disney's Tales of the Jedi has a chance to do the same for another crucial character, Count Dooku. The spin-off series, which originally aired from 2008 to 2014 and will return for a second run in 2020, will explore the time period covered by just one of the prequel's trilogy films. Its narrative and voice acting quickly gained critical acclaim, and the show eventually became an essential part of the Star Wars canon. A second animated series, similar to The Clone Wars, is in the works for Disney+. While The Clone Wars focuses on the wartime events leading up to the events of the original Star Wars trilogy, Tales of the Jedi will alternate between the pre- and post-war years of Ahsoka Tano's life and Count Dooku's training as a Jedi. Both of these shows provide us with a glimpse of the past of Anakin and Count Dooku, two of the franchise's most prominent villains, before they turned to the dark side in the main films. Disney was successful in humanizing Anakin as a Jedi during the Clone Wars because it gave the character more screen time than the prequel movies did, allowing viewers to see him for the battle hero and master that he was. Now, Tales of the Jedi can show Count Dooku as more than simply Palpatine's goon while he trained Anakin. He can also be portrayed as a formidable Jedi Master. The audience can get to know the deceased characters better in each series, giving Anakin and probably Count Dooku more depth and sadness. Tales of the Jedi could make Count Dooku better. While seeing the Clone Wars, spectators were able to spend so much time with Anakin, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, and the Clone Warriors, generating emotional depth developed through combat for everybody involved. Having witnessed Anakin nurture Ahsoka, lead and protect the clones, and collaborate with Obi-Wan across 7 seasons provided spectators the ability to actually care about Anakin beyond his portrayal in the prequel movies, which met with a mixed reception. This relationship impacted how Anakin was seen throughout both the original and the prequel trilogy retroactively, making Anakin's demise more tragic owing to the knowledge of how he was throughout the Clone Wars series. Count Dooku will have the opportunity to mimic this experience in Tales of the Jedi, in the prequel movies, and the Clone Wars series. Count Dooku, as Darth Tyrannus, was only ever seen as a series villain at best, a predecessor to Darth Vader. Chancellor Palpatine undoubtedly viewed Count Dooku as such, as he invested his time and effort into growing close with Anakin and making plans for Order 66. In contrast, Count Dooku is presented in his heroic heyday in Tales of the Jedi, making him more than just a minion for Darth Vader in the prequels. Hopefully, Disney is savvy enough to apply the same kind of empathetic storytelling in Tales of the Jedi that worked so brilliantly in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. So guys, now you know everything about the Tales of the Jedi timeline and when each episode takes place. What do you think of the video? Awesome, right? Kindly give it a like and share so your friends can watch it too. One more thing, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to keep getting more interesting videos like this. See you next time.